website to access it.
Got it. Yeah,
just
and
making
that's
sure
yeah,
that-
that's how you tell them. Yep.
Okay.
All right, you guys are good to go.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Is Jean coming, Jane?
Haven't heard from him at all. But I assume so. I would have assumed that I'd hear not if is the little recording symbol all the way up in the top left corner on or off, Michael?
It's on. It's on.
It's on, it's flashing for me.
Okay, it looked like it was flashing, but I have to like stick my face right up to it to see it close, and I didn't want to do that.
There should be two recording symbols, at least I see two. One is live on YouTube, but the other recording is because it's recording onto my computer.
Okay, and then that's just a flashing one or whatever, okay. So yes, I haven't heard from anybody, so I was assuming everybody was gonna make it. David Perlman last month just kind of like zoned out and forgot about it, so.
Oh, it's unusual for Jean to be late.
True.
Oh, here he is. Hi, Jean.
Sorry, I'm so dark, but there's that huge window in my office and I can't really, how's that?
That's better.
I have to go to the basement or else you can't see me at all because of the light. So.
Well, I could go
Not
home.
that you have to see me, really. But.
I could go home, but I didn't have time before.
Right.
we started. Hey, do we have a quorum? Hi, Fred.
Yes. I was mute. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm texting David just to remind him.
So how does a public hearing work in this regard?
Basically, when the notices went out and the notice that was actually in the paper, what happened was it was listed that all public comments needed to be submitted in writing, either through the mail or by email, and that they had up to 4 o'clock today to submit things.
Okay, so they couldn't, they can't actually speak, but they can listen in.
Correct. And that's why I wanted to just make sure that the live thing had started, just so that.
Great, okay. I was just checking.
I received 3 emails. Is that the correct number?
Jane?
Let me just, I just 1 sec. I just wanted to text David. There he is.
Sure.
I just sent David a text saying the meeting had started. So.
You lost his video again. David, your video went off again.
He'll come back.
Okay, there you are. Yes,
Michael,
Yes, Jean, there were three letters that I received.
all right, I'll call the meeting to order. I'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
okay.
Jane, I was thinking about how to put the emails into the record. Since this is streaming, would you put each one up, sharing the screen for
Sure.
a minute or so?
Yep. Okay, I need Michael to
Oh, did
allow
you,
me to.
hold on, participants, I think. Share screen, multiple participants can share. Try it now, Jane, maybe.
Yep, I got it. Okay, this was the first one that came in today. David just texted me he can't get audio. Do you want to try to get that working for him first before
Sure.
we do this?
right. Let's see what we can do. David, let's see. Host, remove, make co-host, that video. David, why don't you try signing out and signing in again? Did you just do that? Because I don't have anything. I don't even see anything that says make them up. Let's stop screen sharing for a minute, Jane.
Okay, let me. Okay,
All right, David. Okay. Start in waiting room. Ask to start the video. Oh, I don't know where he went. I don't even have anything that says, I think I can mute you, stop video, mute your audio. I don't even have the same options for him I have for everybody else.
I didn't notice, was he trying to hear out of headphones as opposed to?
I didn't see that. But like everybody else, if I click, I have mute audio, stop video, chat, rename. On him, I just have ask to start the video, chat, or rename. So if he's coming through as something different, I wonder if he's using, I don't know. I wonder if he's using a device and he hasn't enabled audio. I can't do anything.
He
Okay.
could try logging in with the phone number and calling into the meeting so he can at least hear and participate.
Did you hear that, David? You can't really answer. Well, you could turn on your picture and shake your head, I guess.
Train.
I also just received a email from Dan Shermer saying he's trying to connect but hasn't succeeded yet. So I'm not sure what's happening with that.
Who is that person?
He's the applicant.
Oh, he's the
There he is.
okay. Can you hear everybody, Dan?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we're having trouble with one person connecting. Did you text David and tell him to call in, Jane?
Do you know what the phone number is, Kyle?
Should be at the base of your meeting invite. He should have it. David should have it. If he has the link, he has the phone number.
Okay.
I'll try calling him.
Jana just added the info to the chat window, so if he can see the chat window, he could use it right from there.
Okay.
Right, David? It's Gene. What's, okay, okay. Could you try signing in again? Okay. Okay.
Okay, there's David.
There you were.
Connecting to audio. There it goes, David.
Oh,
Hi,
okay.
can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh,
We can.
Okay, bye.
okay. Ah, sorry, boys and girls.
So there are two of you now, David. There's you and there's Nancy.
And one of you is at a
That's
palm
that's
on
fine.
a beautiful beach.
Yeah. You might want to turn the video off of Nancy's computer.
Okay.
Okay,
Better.
great.
I mean, I'm looking at my, thing that says David Perlman Planning Board.
Yep, no, we're all good now.
It's fine now, David.
Okay, good.
All right, back to the screen share. And just the way that it worked before is whatever the letter is, somebody actually read the letter out loud into record, even though it's screen shared on the other meetings.
Do you want to read it,
Okay,
Michael?
I've got it. I'll
Want
quickly
me to
read
read
it.
it?
Okay.
Okay. Dear members, this is, whose letter is this, Jane?
It says down at the bottom.
Okay. June 16th, 2020, dear members of the Village Planning Board. We are writing today to voice our strong objection to the subdivision of 3 Elm Street in Cooperstown. We are the residents who live adjacent to, across from, or up the block from the proposed subdivision. We have a vested interest in preserving the atmosphere and character of Pioneer Street. The current developer, 3 Elm Street, has stated to us that he's flipping the house. He does not intend to live in it. So what becomes of the subdivision and how it changes the character of the street can be of little interest to him. But for those of us who live here, we have major objections. 1, if you subdivide the existing lot, you condemn these magnificent maple trees, a Norwood spruce, and an entire line of trees behind you, and devalue all the properties adjacent to and across from the new lot. We consulted with a builder who said that building on this proposed 0.160 acre lot would be like trying to squeeze a quarter into a dime slot. Any foundational work on a new building on that site would do irreparable damage to the tree roots, effectively killing the trees, even if the building plan does not specifically propose to take down the trees. Furthermore, the building plan does specifically call for the entire line of existing trees. 2, approving the subdivision at this stage paves the way for the eventual development of the lot without the developer having to do the work of establishing how, or indeed if, he could guarantee preservation of any trees on the lot. 3, approving a subdivision of the lot serves the monetary interest of a single developer while harming the nearby residents, destroying the beauty of the trees that enhance neighboring properties, and opposing the interests of many residents on Pioneer Street. The current developer is not consulted with any neighbors regarding his plan for the new lot, despite the negative outcomes that subdividing would support. He is asking the village to help him divide and profit with no regard for the impact it will have on the people who live there. We appreciate you hearing our concerns. We are united in opposition to the subdivision of 3 Elms. Name: Haley Wright and Jeb Reed at 75 Pioneer Street. Amy Stack and Christina Stack at 78 Pioneer Street. Gretchen Radich, Kathy Radich, and Don Radich at 77 Pioneer Street. Chuck Page and Ursula Hayes at 73 Pioneer Street. Nelson Mondeko, 97 Pioneer Street. Ryan Myasek and Caitlin Myasek, 104 Pioneer Street. Stuart Wright and Jenny Wright at 92 Pioneer Street. That's the end of that letter.
Thank you.
Okay, letter 2 from the Carpenters. Hello, we are writing this email to comment that we are not in favor of subdividing the existing 3 Elm Street property into 2 parcels. Last year, we assessed the unique character of this neighborhood, including the homes and properties, and decided to invest by purchasing the 17 Elm Street property where our family now resides. 3 Elm Street is 2 doors away. We do not wish to see the neighborhood changed by subdividing into smaller properties and potentially have an additional house begin construction nearby. Sincerely, the Carpenter family. Is there another one?
Who lives in the house?
One second, David. There's one more.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay, so this is the 3rd and final letter from the Hayes family. This email responds to notice of public hearing that invites comment on subdividing the parcel at 3 Elm Street. There has been no public disclosure of information that suggests an outcome for the new parcel. Overberry Estates LLC might want to develop residential property there or preserve the lot as a park. The proposed action should not be approved until such information is available. Has the Village of Cooperstown asked Overberry its intent for the use of the new parcel? If so, has Overberry declined to answer? If not, will the village ask and publicly disclose for further comment before deciding on the proposed action to subdivide? The residents of Pioneer Street should not be expected to comment blindly. Charles T. Hage, 73 Pioneer Street. That's the last letter? Is that the last letter, Jane?
Yes.
Okay, so we read all 3 letters into record.
but so Jane, under the rules set forth, that is the end of the public comments.
As I stated before, the only public comments should have been gotten to me by 4 o'clock today, and those were the only 3 that I received.
Yeah.
And Terry was going to send on anything that came in the mail today, and she didn't send on anything else. So I
Okay,
believe that's it.
okay. I'll leave the public hearing open in the slight chance that somebody sends something in while we're discussing the application.
And I have my email in front of me in case anything does come. I can see it right away.
Right. So we'll start the regular agenda, item 1, which is 3 Elm Street. I have a few quick comments concerning the public comments that we received. The current owner's economic interest, in my mind, ought not be part of our consideration. With respect to smaller lots, if the lots meet the zoning law, it seems there's no guarantee to residents that there can't be a subdivision. But we could discuss that. Disclosing the intent can only be what's allowed by the zoning law, which, Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, is that single family house?
It's single family, 2 family, and 3 family. I believe 4 and up would need to go for a special use permit, but all of them would have to meet parking requirements no matter what. So, But yes, it is 1 and 2 family automatic for there.
Okay. And with respect to trees, I don't know that neighbors have a right to require trees to stay on somebody else's property. I understand the concern, and we could discuss that, but in my mind, that's not a proper subject matter. Does anybody else have comments?
Yeah, regarding, again, I think it always involves the trees, all the one letter from the residents on the street. Every argument was tied to the loss of the trees. What is the village's, it has a tree law, and how would that apply in this case for developing a lot? I'm not familiar with the tree preservation. Well, I know there used to be, if you cut down more than 1/3 of the trees, you couldn't cut down more than 1/3 of the trees or something on the lot. But what is that now? Where do we stand now with the tree law?
The tree law still states that no more than 30% of trees with a diameter greater than 6 inches at a distance 4 feet above grade can be removed in a 10-year period. Now, I've never dealt with a new single family house going into a vacant lot. I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a different situation because we're creating something brand new that is, different than, somebody just saying, I want to cut down a tree. This is a situation where they're building a brand new house that is something that the village technically is in favor of. So I'm not sure how it would work, whether they'd need to go for variances for that. And if it is, then it's a variance that just goes to the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah, there was an amendment within the last couple of years to the zoning law that the planning board, in connection with a review of a site plan, can waive the tree requirement. But
Okay,
this property will be exempt from
correct.
the site plan review. So
Right.
unless there's a voluntary request, I don't see that happening. So it seems that it would have to go to the ZBA because the tree committee no longer exists.
Correct. And then, yes, I mean, along with having to go through HBARB and have the application meet all the requirements as far as setbacks, then they would also have to go for a variance for tree removal based on however many trees end up on the site. I can't remember exactly how many trees are on the site once it gets subdivided to know how many might be able to be removed without any kind of variance, and then some that might have to get variances for removal. But
Currently 3 trees on the site.
Well, it would appear to me that if it's within the building envelope, that a tree up in the building envelope, meaning within the side yards as on the map it shows, one cannot insist that you cannot cut down a tree if you're authorized to build a house there. I mean, but I think
it would be something I'd want to check with Martin, but yes, I agree with you that,
the issue I think that the neighbors are concerned about are the trees along the street. Those trees, I went over there to check out the validity of the letter regarding the roots and so forth, and measured back 20 feet from the property line because the front yard is 20 feet setback. It would probably, if you were to dig down 20 feet back to put in a foundation, you would indeed damage the roots of one or more of those maple trees. Now, the major maple tree there looks like it's dying at the top. it has a lot of dead limbs, especially up near the top. So one, to argue for preserving that tree, which might die within the next 5 years or so, or have to be taken down because of disease or whatever is causing it to die, is problematical. But I guess my view would be that the trees are part of the neighborhood, and that's the only kind of valid argument. Now, again, I also agree that with the chairman that my trees, I'm not maintaining my trees in my lot for the view shed of my neighbors. You know, I mean, if they like to look at my property and I have to pay the taxes on it and everything else, I ought to be able to do with my property what is legally allowed, you know, what by law I can do, you know. So I have mixed feelings, but indeed on this, I think there are ways to deal with the trees and still allow a house to be constructed on that piece of property in a residential neighborhood around that subdivision. I think it's quite possible.
Hey, Gene, I understood you to say that the trees weren't in scope here.
They're not in the scope?
Yeah, but in the scope of our discussion, meaning there are many things that we should be discussing about whether this is a viable idea, whether it's a legal idea, but that trees were not even a part of this, part of our scope of discussion, right? So, which is to say, is the lot big enough? Does the lot have the egress it needs, right? Those I think are the things that we should be discussing here. I don't believe that trees are a consideration relative to this board's approval on a subdivision. But if I'm wrong.
No, I just want to make clear, I was voicing my opinion. It wasn't a ruling from the chair.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So, but I'm just trying to understand. I mean, we could talk about trees until, you know, for the rest of the afternoon, and if that's viable, that's viable. So I'm not arguing that. And I certainly understand everybody's perspective relative to what it might do to the neighborhood. But I guess I'm just looking for some, you know, for the sidelines of this discussion that say, here's the scope of our discussion relative to whether this is a legal idea or a viable idea or not. And if trees are part of it, then let's continue. But if trees are not part of it, then we should be discussing other things.
Well, is the lot buildable without removing the trees? I mean, without damaging these trees? One of them, yes, one of them is probably not long for this world. But the other two seem to be healthy. So that's, I mean, I think that was probably what some of the questions are. I didn't mean to stop conversation.
That's okay. I just wanted to pull
I'd like to see
pull
that.
this up just to, you know, look at what was available once the setbacks went in.
Right,
Plus-
it's the middle tree that is probably not as healthy as the other ones appear to be healthy. The pine and the upper maple.
Is the adequacy of the driveway within our purview?
Is that a standard driveway width? I mean, I don't know.
I believe the code calls for a 10-foot wide driveway.
And do we know if that's 10 feet? We don't know.
Well,
looks-
right now it's an existing grass driveway. It's not necessarily going to be the driveway that is the final, you know,
Right,
once something actually gets built. This might not be the actual driveway. It just happens to be an existing curb cut.
Right, but just knowing the topography there, to walk the dog by it every day, that is the most obvious place for a driveway. The other area is a little steeper and right into the backyard of two or number 1 Elm Street. So,
I just got an email with a question on it that I'd like to read. It's mainly it's addressed to Dan, but it basically says, can you ask Dan whether or not he plans on building or if he wants to sell the lot? Will he sell 3 Elm Street first? I believe subdividing off the backyard is going to hurt the value of 3 Elm Street. And that was from Amy Stack. I don't know if you'd like to address that, Dan, or not.
yeah.
So, yeah, if today's application is successful, I would look to market the new lot reasonably quickly. If I'm not successful in finding a buyer, then I would look to develop it myself. But I could really do with a cash injection to help with the renovation work of 3 Elm. I'm really trying to bring the house back up to standard and finish it to a high quality, and build a garage and new driveway to 3 Elm. So any financial support from selling off the subdivision would go towards flipping the main house.
And have we actually determined that a house could, or a structure could be built there and be within the spacing requirements on that lot?
What is the size of the buildable area? That's,
Yeah, I had that question as well.
Yeah.
And
I did the math on that. There's you can come up with a 3,000 square foot house. You got 2 stories. You put the garage, you have space for a garage in the back corner because that can be in the side yard setback. So the house, there's plenty of room for a house, bigger than my house. I mean, you know, so that is not a problem. That's 100-foot wide. One of the advantages of this property is that the neighbors aren't granting. It's a wider lot than pretty much every other house on the street. Most of the other houses, there's a couple of houses that are as wide as this one, but most of the lots on Pioneer Street are narrower than this particular lot. And the house is going to be set back 20 feet, or it can't be, you know, it has a front yard setback at 20 feet, which is more than the neighbors on either side. So in terms of it being imposing on the street view is it's going to be not an issue at all. It's neighbors on either side are closer to this, will be closer to the street than this house. So in a sense, it's not going to interfere with anything in the neighborhood, and it won't be it won't appear to be tightly packed in at all if you build a house on there. It can be done. Again, I would say though that this map shows those maple trees are much smaller on this map than they are in reality. The upper limbs of the maple tree protrude are more than 20 feet into the yard. So they go into where the building area is.
They're just a designation that there's a tree there. They're not they're not supposed to represent the actual size of the tree.
Yeah, but back on the tree issue, by rule of thumb, as I understood, is that roots extend out as far as the limbs of a tree extend out. And so indeed, the roots of those trees would extend into that building envelope.
Okay.
But I agree, trees is not really an issue in this case.
Our minimum
legal perspective.
The minimum lot requirement for a buildable residential lot is 5,000 square feet, and this is almost 7,000 square feet.
Right.
So this actually would almost qualify, or would have qualified for a 2-family in our old code. In the new code, we don't address minimums for 2-family or 3-family. We just talk about lot coverage. So no matter what gets built here, once it comes to the village with a permit to build a house, it would be, you know, looked at as far as setbacks. It would be looked at as far as parking requirements and lot coverage, as far as, you know, we now have a new requirement. I believe it's 60% lot coverage as far as what's allowed to take up space. So all of those things would be looked at when it came back to the village for an actual permit to build a house, kind of thing.
With,
Well, that addresses perhaps or addresses the a category of people's concerns. I can tell you that I live on Pioneer Street. I did not sign this letter because I thought that even though I'm an alternate on the board, that it would have been a conflict of interest. However, my life has been made infinitely miserable by the absolute fury of the neighbors over what this would do to the street and the quality of the neighborhood were this subdivision to be approved. And the question that comes to me as a member of the board is, if we approve it, then what recourse will people have to oppose it at another stage in the process before anything can be done with that lot? Which, you know, on some level is a very legitimate question.
I mean, everybody that wants to build something in the village needs to go before the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board.
Yeah.
So all houses would have to go through there. Because this is a brand new vacant lot, we would also look at setback requirement, you know, make sure that it meets all the setback requirements, which existing houses don't necessarily have to meet, as you can tell just by looking at the little property just to the south of this one, where, you know, they're definitely within the side yard setback and the front yard setback lines. But this structure would need to meet those requirements, or if they chose to try to get beyond those requirements, they would need to go for an area variance with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Here again, with the trees, it kind of depends. I need to check with Martin because of the new, you know, new residential house construction, as opposed to just in general, our tree law. I basically have always looked at that one as, you know, we're dealing with existing structures and existing trees. This is something that's kind of new, and I'm not sure whether it would hold the same minimum requirements, but if it does, then it also needs to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance to remove trees.
Hey, John, so you mentioned fury of the neighbors, and, you know, who might have questioned that, but is there color that you could add beyond what the letters have already said, which speaks to there's a greenway that somebody owns and I want that greenway preserved, which is essentially how I'm categorizing the letters, but discussion among neighbors, you know, additional color to the fury that might help us understand where they're coming from a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I think the fury stems from a sense that they're powerless. That if it meets the, you know, the specific requirements of the law, that there's nothing that we can really do to oppose it, and that they feel that that's what's going to happen, and that's what makes them angry. As far as I know that the trees are a very important factor in this. A lot of people have talked about the trees and their fear of what will happen to them, and the character that will be lost overall to the piece of property and to the street if they're gone. But they're concerned about what kind of structure might appear on that lot, placing placing the structure right next to other people's homes, which destroys the overall quality of the neighborhood in terms of its architecture. We do have a couple of houses on the street further up toward Beaver Street that have been built very, very closely to each other. But those buildings were built back in the latter part of the 1800s. They're not attractive in their location, and they're afraid that the same kind of thing will happen here. They're concerned about what will happen to the driveway and how it possibly coming out of that property could be a safe entry and regress, given its location, and then given how it would, how the driveway would actually in any way benefit the house because of the limitations of space involved. And they're concerned about the overall appearance of a house on what they consider to be a very small lot. You said that the lots here on Pioneer Street tend to be narrower, but they are all very deep. And so none of us, regardless of the size of our homes, encroach on any neighbor's property in the way in which this structure would, regardless of its size. And so, and they feel that really will detract from the overall appearance of our neighborhood, and they think that somebody needs to address that concern of theirs.
I'm just to let you know, I'm looking at the GIS map right now for the couple houses around this property. And the property that I believe would probably be 1 Elm Street, the size of its lot is 0.17. Across the street, there's a property that's 0.14. Then next to it on the other side of this lot, the property is 0.15. So you have 2 properties, one on either side of it, and then another property that's not quite directly across the street, all of which are basically the exact same size as what this lot would end up being. Now, the configuration, yes, is a little different, but as far as acreage or square footage, it's at least the same, if not more, in size.
Jane, could you tell us what the adjoining lots from lot 2 are in terms of acreage?
Well, that's why I'm saying the one that's owned by Amy Stack and Christina Stack is listed as 0.15 acres. The one above this property is listed as 0.17 acres.
Well, on Pioneer Street or Elm Street?
On Pioneer Street.
Oh,
These are the 2 properties on Pioneer Street on either side of it.
Okay, thanks.
That's a more congested corner than the rest of Pioneer Street.
Right, but it's typical of the village, though. I mean, this is not just Pioneer Street, it is the village that is the historic district. So it's typical of the village.
I mean, my lot is 0.13.
Right.
So, I mean, 1.6 is definitely not, an unusual size for lots in the village. And like I said, our minimum requirement is 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
However, it appears that this, and I'm going back to what is our task, is to approve or reject applications that are based on, does the lot 2, and that may not be the only consideration, but does lot 2 meet the requirements necessary to be a separate lot? And it appears to.
We have dealt with this before. on Grove Street where we approved a lot, a subdivision there with Maple, which met the requirements without
Right.
talking about what house would be built and going into great detail. It met the requirements of the area and width and so forth, and we approved it. So this is what we have done before, is to proceed and just follow the law. And we did that on Grove Street.
It's hard to communicate that to angry residents.
So,
I mean, that's just a reality, but it is. It's very difficult.
people tend to imagine the worst, and the good news is if you've seen it, that house on Beaver Street was being worked on near Susquehanna. That I couldn't believe it. Walking by and guys are fixing that up. But it's, people see that, and this is a person who's building a brand new house on this lot is going to do something that's not a shack. Why? Because it's walkable to downtown. It's in this neighborhood. I mean, you're going to do something that is going to be appropriate, and you have HPARB to make it also guarantee that. I think people need to, just relax.
Richard, I think you were the only current member of the planning board when we had the vote on the new property in Lakeland Shores.
Yeah.
And if you'll remember, there was tremendous ire because it had been a vacant lot and people didn't want their sight line to the water ruined.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
There was tremendous ire. But it was a lot, and it was allowed to be developed. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing that there's often, upset when something new is coming in that's different from what's there presently. But we can't.
I think one of the owner neighbors lost their light in their condominium in New York City because a building was built adjacent to it, but there was nothing to protect losing their light, and so they are still suffering from shell shock.
Right, but that is clearly not going to happen here because of all the other restrictions in the village. So you're not going to get a skyscraper on this lot by any means.
Yeah. As I was saying, it's just one of those unfortunate things. But we are required to follow the statute dispassionately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And John, you're lucky that there are 5 members here.
I know. I don't
have to vote.
Hey, Ellen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I sense that that you have a unique perspective here. Would you share that with me?
Me?
Yeah.
A unique perspective. Well, I guess, I mean, I'm conflicted because I love those old trees. I would not want to see them go. I am committed to retaining the historic elements of the village. There is, like I said in a previous meeting, there's a historic hitching post there that I believe belongs to this property. I don't see it on the map unless it's the GP right next to the pine tree. I don't know what GP means, but it's, I can point on the screen, but that doesn't mean anything to you guys. So nope, above that. It's either to the left or to the right, but
Oh, you think it's that one? No, I think
well,
it's this right here.
There doesn't be anything on the map that indicates historic elements, that are listed on the National Register, and I'm guessing that is one. But so I would, my concern, which would be with regard to the HPARB, is anything built here would need to conform to the neighborhood scale. And, in the sense that it has to be obviously different. It has to be new. Generally, you don't copy or try to make it look like it's always been there. But, you know, it can be done so it's done sensitively. I'm conflicted because we need housing in this village. If we want to have, you know, the number of people I see on a daily basis posting on Celebrate Cooperstown that they're desperately looking for housing in walking distance of Bassett, you know, you could have a small family home there. That would be a really nice addition to the neighborhood. So, you know, as long as it adheres to the law, I would hesitate if the eventual developer wanted to apply for gazillion variances. And I would adamantly oppose variances like that. You know, an excessive use of variances, because we've seen that happen in other things, you know, with the hotel that was proposed on Main Street, they needed gazillion variances. The multifamily structure on Chestnut was going to need a gazillion variances. So if it can be done sensitively within the lot, I am not opposed to it. But I mean, that's not our committee's purview.
Right, but we do have faith, right? We have faith in HCARB, and we have faith in the planning boards ourselves. So to do the right thing and to make sure that whatever gets built there has, you know, fits into the neighborhood. So.
Right, it needs, and yeah, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that the law requires things to be to scale in the surrounding neighborhood. I mean, certainly that, I know that HCARB has emphasized that in the past. You know, I say there's one difference in that the house that was built on Delaware, was it Delaware?
Yes.
That is out of scale to that neighborhood. And so
It's pretty much the same as the house right next door to it. It's just there's the other house on the other side is just a ranch.
he's
Yes,
another big chunk onto it. So, but anyway, that's, you know, that is a concern, but, you know, I'm looking at some lots over on Susquehanna that are 0.05 and they're really not conforming. So I guess I would be sad to lose those trees. The one maple I do think needs serious pruning, or else it risks falling on the street and possibly on the house next across the street. But the other two I think are perfectly healthy, and I would want to see those retained if we have the chance, if the village has the ability to do that.
Do we know that the intent is to take down all those trees?
No, there's no intent expressed. I'm just saying that,
No, I understand. We're spending a lot of time on something that,
I know, but that is one of the attractions of that lot right now is, I mean, the physical attraction of the lot is the green and the shade that it provides to the street. So,
do the Stacks still own this property?
yes, the one below.
yes.
Well, the lot 1 and 2.
No,
No, they never, did they ever own that? No.
No.
Amy owns the little house south of this lot too.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Amy owns the lot south, but adjacent to lot 2. Amy Stack does, and her
Oh,
mom.
okay. Now who owns lot 1?
That would be Mr. Shermer or Overbury Estates.
Oh, okay, I see now.
Yeah, it's lot 1 and 2 are currently a single lot. And the plan is
That I
to,
know. I've gone over there and walked around it. And there's a house on it.
correct.
Currently.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jane, could you put up the Sika?
Sure.
And I
Do
think
you want to go through? Do you want to go through his part, or just go to the 2 and 3, part 2 and 3?
well, if we want to look through it, we can.
Maybe. It's all right here. I can start with 1 or I can just go to 2 and 3.
Has everybody had a chance to review part 1 in the application?
Yes. No, I,
Jane, did you see anything in part 1 that you thought was incorrect?
Well, the stuff that I changed to red is the stuff that was just things that needed to get changed just by, things like it's part of the historic Glass Historic District, which wasn't necessarily something that Dan would have known about when he filled it out. So I just corrected that. And there's a actual seeker mapper tool that's available through the state that I basically based a couple of the corrections on also. So, but otherwise everything looked correct or fine, so. So then at that point, we get on to the sections that you guys do.
You can just,
And I just lost my camera. Sorry about that.
So Gene, I missed last meeting, or anybody? Have we been designated as the lead agency here?
You are the only ones reviewing this.
Yes,
we did designate ourselves, I believe, at the last meeting.
it's in the minutes.
Thank you, Ella.
Sorry, I didn't, I'm just,
Yeah.
long day, Fred. It's been a long- Yeah.
Okay. So we'll look at part 2, question 1. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation?
No,
no.
no.
Number 2, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
Yes,
Yes,
Intensity.
small or moderate to large?
No, because we have codes that already said, we have enough land to build a house there, so.
right, but it will result in a change in the intensity of use of land because it's vacant right now and then it will be lived
Yeah, but the
on.
minimum lot size sets the intensity level, right? The minimum lot size in the village sets the intensity level, and this meets.
We're talking about a subdivision though.
Yeah.
Currently, there's one house on that total property. So I do think it's an intensity issue.
Yeah, it'll be an intensity, it'll increase, yeah.
There'll be 2 houses on the same piece of property after the subdivision.
Yep.
Okay, but yes, I mean, it's a yes, but will it be a small impact or is it a moderate to large impact?
I'd say it's doubling the use of the property, the intensity of the use. So I would say that.
Moderate and large.
The use chain is the same. It's residential use, but it's only the intensity.
Yeah, but it's doubling the use, presumably by the double the amount of people.
No,
Double the amount
it's,
of cars, double the amount of,
no,
That's
it's
a
not,
moderate, maybe.
it's not a change of use because it will remain residential. That's,
it's the intensity of use is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's doubling the intensity of the use.
yeah.
Well, when you double it, it's got to be at least moderate. It's not insignificant.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I can't see the boxes to check because the faces, everybody's faces are,
Yeah.
I can change that. Hang on, let me see if I can change.
I mean, on my screen, I size it so I can see it, but I can't
No,
tell what
no,
everybody else is
I
seeing.
had to put you guys at the top of the screen. I'm good now. Okay.
You good? Okay. Number 3, will a proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
I'd say no.
I think no also. Does anybody think yes?
No, thank you.
John's neighbors,
What was that, Dave?
John's neighbors.
Right. I mean, I think adding one house, yeah, maybe it would change the character. I don't think it would change the character.
Then we're talking about impair
not-
the
Yeah,
character,
it's not
not,
comparing.
I would say no or small.
Ow.
Number 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area?
No, because there isn't one. There is no critical environmental area there.
Okay. 5, will the proposed action result in adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
No,
Oh,
6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
no,
no,
no, I'd say.
yes? They said yes?
Number 7, will the proposed action impact existing A, public-private water supplies, B, public-private wastewater treatment utilities?
Well, the issue says have impact. It doesn't say major or minor. Additional house is going to be connected to the sewer system and it's going to use water. So there will be an infinitesimal impact.
That's under no or small impact may occur.
Oh, okay. No, it's very, yeah. Okay. No or small. Thank you.
Sure.
8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
isn't that HPARB's decision?
Well, but we're the lead agency.
Yeah, okay, no.
I would say would have an impact, a moderate impact myself, just because you're building in a historic district, you're building new.
I know Jean did this the last time, and I want to bring it up just to state the obvious, or it's not obvious, but this is only looking at the actual subdivision. It's not looking at what's going to happen after the subdivision's created. So it doesn't address the house that potentially goes in after it's subdivided. Correct, Jean? Isn't that what you said the last one?
Right.
Last time we did this?
Yeah, and we discussed at the last meeting that this is, we're not treating this as segmented because the structure that might or probably will go on this property is a type 2 under SECA and doesn't require planning board site plan review.
So was 8,
So will seeker be done with HPARB?
no,
No,
seeker does not, or single family residential houses do not need to go through seeker.
Then I would still say moderate to large impact then here. I mean, I just think that it would have, because we know that, the inevitable is, it's to be built on, and therefore it would have a moderate to large impact. It's not being created to be a park. It's not being preserved as vacant land forever. I mean, that's the whole point of the subdivision. So that's what I would argue for.
Okay. Well, let's try to narrow this. In terms of impairing the quality, does it impair the quality of
Or character.
okay, of the historic resources?
Mhm.
Ellen?
Right. I mean, that's where I would argue it has a moderate impact. Is it going to kill the whole thing? No, but I do think it has a moderate impact in a historic district. If it's not a historic district, I would not say that.
Yeah.
Part of a historic district is the way the streets are laid out, the way the lots have, are historically laid out, the way the buildings relate to the street and to each other. So that's why I say it would have a moderate impact. Again, if we were not in a historic district, it would not apply.
I don't think
Wonder
so.
if that's not
No.
handled in the next
No.
question.
No,
I'm a preservationist, but you say what you want to say.
Question talks about, flora and fauna, and it is not a better place to capture that, because I don't know, we are protected by a number of different bodies in this village to make sure that anything that gets built fits in, and we have faith in that.
But none of them are doing seeker, so I just think we have to answer this.
Action.
I mean, we're the only ones doing seeker, so I think we have to respond to this question.
I agree. We do respond to
I fully understand that, but will the action impair the character and quality of the historic? In what way? Will that, because it's a newer house?
From a preservationist perspective, when you're dealing with historic resources, building in a historic district can have a deleterious effect. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, we don't think it will be that big. I'm just saying it will have an impact.
Well, if it has an impact, my view would be a small impact. And so
I can be outvoted. I'm just.
I know that. I know that. So let's take a vote on this one.
Right.
Who voting for no or small?
No,
No. So Fred, I can't see you. Fred?
Small.
No. So no is Jean, Richard, David, and Fred, correct? And moderate to large is Ellen?
Moderate to large, that's me.
Okay. Okay, so put it down as no to small. And Michael, do you have that vote?
We lost Michael.
Michael?
wake up,
muted.
Michael.
I muted me. Yes, I have it. Sorry. Jean, Richard, David, and Fred small, Ellen large, and it is being marked down as small.
Okay. Number 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, that is wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora or fauna?
No. Subdivision.
Is that no from everybody?
Yes.
We don't know.
Okay, no.
So
Okay. Number 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No.
Okay. No. Jane, I think that's a no.
No.
Okay. I lost everybody's voice for a minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
And 11, will the proposed action cause a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No,
No.
Jane, are you having difficulty with this?
No, I've got it. I lost my things in here for the fill out form, but I just wanted to copy down what the one that we have to discuss and drag over to part 3.
Mhm.
I'm just going to stop the share for a second and open this up first.
while we're in this lull, Fred, that's an interesting picture.
Can't answer because he's muted anyway.
Ah, there you are. I don't know what the other one was.
Family.
You're muted, Fred.
You're muted.
Ah,
From his reaction, it sounds like we'd like to hear what he's saying.
Right.
I'm sorry. I thought I clicked it twice, apparently. I said, that's a picture of my daughters who asked me to turn my back to the camera. That's all.
I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
So in part 3, you have to address question number 2, I believe.
What is question number 2? Did you paste it?
No, it wouldn't copy and paste. That's what I was trying to do.
The intensity of use of land.
Yes.
Well, I think we did discuss it, that by putting another house on it, it's increasing the residential load of that parcel of land. Going from one house to 2 houses increases the intensity.
You said residential load?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
I
residential.
know,
area.
I'm just trying to write down stuff.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
you don't
assuming
have to-
G,
I didn't realize you were going to do it verbatim. You would have said something more eloquent.
Yeah, Jane, what
Yeah.
we're saying is it would result in a moderate to large increase in the intensity of use of the land.
But do we need to say, I obviously think so, that by subdividing the land or approving the subdivision, however it's put, it opens the opportunity for another house, structure, whatever, to be built on that.
Right.
Instead of
That's
just
good qualification.
approving the subdivision,
Right.
right? Or whatever.
Very good, Dave. I agree.
Thank you.
think you have to put increase or something in there, Jane, where we're going, no moderate to large increase of intensity of use or something.
I didn't hear you, Michael.
You have to change that because you just wrote will result in a moderate to large intensity of use. You need to say large change or large increase or something.
Right, a moderate to large
Change.
Yeah.
impact or change.
Now you have a typo.
Yes, I know. That one will change.
There you go. You want me to tell you what David said? I wrote it down.
Sure.
David wrote, by subdividing the land, it opens the opportunity for another house to be built on it.
Opportunity for what?
For another house to be built on it.
Okay.
And then Ellen said,
Thereby doubling. Well, I don't know if it's
No,
doubling. Thereby increasing the amount of
increasing the use, the intensity of use.
increasing the intensity of use, the structure to
Good enough.
space ratio.
just put what Ellen said before, which is just going from one house to two houses increases intensity.
Right. Period.
I would add
Yeah.
that here we're speaking about the specific 1 to 2 plots, but I think it's a very low, if no, increase in the neighborhood.
Could you say that again, please, Chief?
Yeah, we're looking at, in the first part, at the 2 plots in a vacuum. But I think we also have to look at it in connection with the neighborhood.
Neighborhood, yeah.
And I
But I
think
think that wasn't that dealt with in a different question? I mean, we're only looking at the question of the intensity of use in this, on this parcel.
Mhm.
I don't think the neighborhood is, I think that was a separate question. Am I not? Did somebody,
Hold on, I'll go back.
Well,
I feel like there was a question about the character of the neighborhood and I was arguing for yes, it would alter that, but it would be a small impact.
Yeah, but
But there's nothing on use of land in
Yeah.
relation to the,
yeah,
It's
that,
just,
yeah.
just the question two that we're dealing with, it doesn't say in the neighborhood, it just says on this. I
Well-
assumed it was just this piece, this parcel.
Sure. It is, but when we're reviewing this for
I thought there was a question.
when reviewing this, I think we have to look at a larger picture than this specific lot. The question as phrased
Is
in
vague.
part 2 is very limited to this lot. But I think in the grander scheme, when we're looking at the overall environmental impact, I think it doesn't have an impact or has a very small impact on the neighborhood. And I think that's an important point to put in
Okay.
front.
Go ahead.
Okay.
instead of intensity, should you use the word density?
No, because you're speaking of intensity. Intensity of use,
Intensity of use.
Oh,
intensity,
yeah, yeah, keep it.
yeah, so add of use after intensity, please.
Got it.
Hey, Jean,
And instead of a little, just a little. Yes, Michael?
I just think it's a little confusing reading it because the first sentence is it will result in a moderate to large change in the intensity of use of the land. And the last sentence is there will be little to no increase the overall neighborhood intensity of use, but it's not clear what the difference is between why one's different from the other.
Okay, then in the first one, thereby increasing intensity of use
Of the parcel.
of the parcel.
Right.
And
Okay.
the first sentence, it should be, it would result in a moderate to large change in the intensity of use of the parcel.
Oh, yeah, in the very first sentence, Jane.
Yeah,
Where
or there. It could also be there too.
it could probably be in both.
Wait,
places, Yeah.
We haven't been
So,
asked
well,
to.
if I've got use of the land,
Change land to parcel.
No, don't,
No?
no. No, because we're dealing with the question is asked.
Right.
Right, but the question doesn't talk about the neighborhood, so that's where the first, there is a moderate to large intensity of the parcel under question that is being subdivided.
Mhm,
The overall intensity in the neighborhood is less,
mhm.
but I think we have to address both.
Why not just put the word land use in that last sentence? No
Otherwise, we're not going to,
overall neighborhood intensity of land use.
because the whole reason we're doing this in part 3 is because we answered yes to the moderate to large impact and density of the land. So if we then say, but there will be no increase in the overall neighborhood, it's fine. We have to differentiate between what we mean by the moderate to large change in the intensity of use of the land in the first sentence.
Mhm.
We have to differentiate between that and then the last sentence. So I think the first sentence must be the land to be subdivided, maybe.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Well, I mean, to be strict about it, we've not been asked to comment on the intensity of land use in the neighborhood.
Right.
I know, but,
That's question 3.
yeah,
Although what you're saying is important, it's kind of there as a land gap for whoever reads this. A little extra thing to put in.
I think it's important to say what we're saying here because this is where neighbors were concerned. You know, extra houses, too many houses in the neighborhood and too much. So it shows that we are addressing or we considered their complaints.
A good point, Richard. Yeah.
and I mean, if you read the paragraph above the comments where it says each potential impact should be assessed considering its setting, probability of occurring, duration, irreversibility, geographic scope, and magnitude, I think you do bring in the neighborhood into this question at that point. So,
and
Well, do you want to add a line after the second one that just says, since the intention is to sell the parcel for development?
no,
Is likely?
no. We don't know what you, no,
No?
no.
Okay, I'm just asking because he said that was likely. That's what he was showing it for.
It is likely, but I think we're saying that here.
Am I allowed to speak?
Yeah, just 1 second, please, Dan. I'm also wondering if we should add that the change is in accord with the village's comprehensive plan
Right.
to add additional housing.
Yeah,
It's a good point, certainly.
What was that, Dave? I agree, Gene.
Looks good to me.
Wait, Dan? Dan, did you want to add something?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Well, it was more just reflecting back to question 2 in its origin. The application in front of you is a subdivision. By very nature, you're going to double the intensity just from going from 1 lot to 2. I would have thought that would be classed as a minor or small change. Had this original lot been, say, a 10-acre lot, and I was looking to subdivide into 10 or 15 subdivisions, that would be a moderate to high intensity difference. But just splitting a lot in half, you can't make it any smaller, just in the very nature of the application. You're going to create 1 more lot. So it was just, I just didn't know whether we could just rewind and just readdress whether it is actually a small change or moderate.
Well, it's whether or not 50% of X is a large change or a small or a moderate change, actually, or a small to no change.
The application is a subdivision, so the very nature of the subdivision is you would at least achieve 1 extra lot. It's just whether if there were multiple lots put in front of you, then that would be a higher intensity.
Yeah, but the CEQA application is
But,
a subdivision application. It's its own thing, right? So forcing us to look at any number of different perspectives, not just the simple math of dividing, 1 into 2. So if this were a subdivision application, then it would be a foregone conclusion. I just don't think that it is. CEQA meaning.
Okay.
As far as what we have in front of us, I think that is adequate and it addresses it. All the various points that we've made. Excuse me.
And Jane, would you scroll down to the boxes?
Do we need a
Okay.
motion here?
Was there a problem? Anybody have any problem with the language?
No.
I think we have to check the first box then. because we said that the action may result in one, let's see, large or significant adverse. Essentially large or significant impact. Let's see.
I don't think we have to check that. No.
No, we don't.
No, you don't want to have to make them do an environmental.
Fine.
No, I'm sorry. Strike that. Yeah, the second box.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I stand corrected. Thank you. Okay, well, just to formalize this, we'll take a vote on parts 2 and 3. All in favor of adopting this as written? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right,
That was to adopt the secret form, Gene, as written?
yes. And I will now close the public hearing. Jane, I think we are finished with the screen share.
No problem.
And now we move to the merits of the application. Is there a motion to approve the subdivision?
So moved.
Okay, Richard moved, David second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion carries.
That was unanimous, Gene?
Yes. And Jane,
Yes,
will you review with Martin when we have a plat that's sufficient to file?
correct. Just to let you know, this was one of the things that needed to go to the county. The county has it. They haven't responded yet, but typically on the last 2 subdivisions that we had submitted to them, they returned them with just comments to say that it was a village decision only. So I'm assuming that's exactly what's going to happen, and I should have all that information within the next couple days. And if there is an issue with it, I guess at that point, I can reach back out to you guys and
Okay,
do this, or you can preface the approval based on no adverse comments from the county or something.
okay. Can we change that motion? That is assuming that there are no adverse comments from the county, move to approve. Is that okay, Richard?
Yeah, yeah.
And David? Okay, in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
And just to be clear, you're approving the subdivision, right, Gene?
yeah, subject to receiving no adverse opinion from the county.
So basically at this point, then what has to happen is I need to get copies, including a Mylar from Dan, that then you, as the chairman, Gene, would sign
Mhm.
along with copies that we would keep for the file and things like that. So I haven't received an actual paper copy yet or a Mylar from Dan, but at this point, until we hear back from the county, I'd say, you might as well wait until that comes back before we talk about you guys signing anything.
Okay,
I believe you have like 62 days or something to sign it after the approval.
Mhm.
So,
yeah,
Okay.
Ellen, you seem to be raising your hand.
No, my wrist really hurts. So I just would love to get home so I can ice it.
Okay, I don't blame you.
So it's swollen and it's uncomfortable.
It looks like it's healing. Good for you.
Yeah, I can't bend it. So physical therapy starts tomorrow. But it gets in the way.
Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
okay. Then let's put off item 2 till the next meeting, a review of possible updates.
Okay.
And has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah. Good.
Yes, but I was not there at that meeting, so I'll have to abstain from any approval.
And I'd be lying because Ellen already called me out.
Busted.
Okay. I'll move to approve the minutes.
Move to approve.
Okay, Richard moved to approve. I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Yep,
no.
Ellen has her hand up.
Okay, hold on, Ellen. you-
Everybody, it's unanimous to approve.
Okay, who's abstaining because they weren't there?
I wasn't there. Yep.
Okay, so Fred's,
Yeah.
abstaining.
I understand.
That is John, I think.
All right.
Were you there, John?
Yes, I was.
In support of my accuracy, I will vote to
Yeah,
approve.
but John isn't voting because we have 5 regular
He
members.
doesn't vote even when. he's
No, yeah,
not
even when,
there.
we
Okay,
we have a member abstaining, that's an abstention.
okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay. I move to adjourn.
So move.
Okay. I'll second it.
Ellen can use her hand.
I can lift it up and down. I can't bend it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, guys. Take
Hey,
care.
well,
Bye-bye.
Very well done, boss.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Jane, you could,
yes.
do you want to end the meeting or who's?